is Morning Express. Now, there were heated exchanges between lawyers and those representing the Nairobi City County Assembly and those representing Governor Mbuvi Sonko when the Senate began hearing the proposed removal from office by the impeachment. Lawyer Ndegwa Njiro said he had overwhelming evidence to show why Sonko should be kicked out for allegedly plundering resources of the county. During the proceedings, the Nairobi County Assembly Minority Leader Michael Ogada found himself in a tight spot as he decided to take the Senate in circles after lawyers Harrison Kinyanjui asked him to confirm or deny that he received more than 800,000 shillings to travel to Dubai. Our senior parliamentary affairs reporter Patrick Amimo followed the proceedings and has more.
It was Sonko's date with destiny. The Senate convening a special sitting to hear and determine a motion from the Nairobi County Assembly seeking his removal from office by impeachment.
The governor has violated the provisions of...
First, lawyers for the County Assembly and governor made their preliminary submissions.
It shall be presented before you, Mr. Speaker, sir, overwhelming evidence of how a governor has plundered the resources of this country, the resources of the Wanjiko, the resources of the hustler nation that is always spoken about.
His Excellency, the governor is saying, he has been subjected to an unfair process. That which violates Article 47(1) of our Constitution can never be validated retrospectively, introspectively, or otherwise howsoever. It cannot. It is dead on arrival.
The County Assembly being accorded the first opportunity to prosecute its case through examination in chief, the first among its 6 witnesses being Embakasi MCA and Minority Leader Michael Ogada.
He said he could not continue paying school fees for people who were recruited by the predecessor, the person he took over from.
This witness is adducing evidence that was not before the county. It is now self-evident.
Unless there has been a prior decision by this honorable House that a witness will only be limited to the content of the statement. That was never given to us.
Ogada also presented a strong case against Sonko on abuse of office.
The daughter is disguised as an award administrator. And if you look at the ward administrators we have in the Nairobi County, the daughter has never been a ward administrator. We find the governor's daughter being hired for a chopper at a cost of 220,000 Kenya shillings to go around New York City to see how beautiful the city was.
And when it was time for the cross-examination session, Sonko's lawyer Harrison Kinyanjui sought to demolish Ogada's evidence. Ogada soon found himself in a tight spot when the hunter became the hunted.
Mr. Ogada, did you travel to Dubai?
Your mic has a problem. Because we can't...
Mr. Speaker, what I'm saying is we are engaging in a sideshow. That's a sideshow.
Just answer the question and we will go.
Ogada, you have therefore unlawfully appropriated 823,000 from the City County Assembly. That's correct?
No.
The hearings continue Thursday morning with Governor Mike Sonko and his witnesses presenting their evidence and reasons why the impeachment motion should be rejected. Patrick Amimo, KTN News.
And we are now joined via video link by Alex Manyasi, who's a governance expert, to just delve and see where we are headed as a country. And thank you for joining us, Alex. Straight to that. Now, quite a number of accusations before the governor there. There is violation of the Constitution, abuse of office, gross misconduct, quite a lot of heavy accusations before the governor. However, the lawyer Kinyanjui also taking the stand and making sure that he is, defending his client adequately. Maybe just your opening remarks, Alex, on these and your thoughts on where we are headed as a country and Nairobi City as, one being the capital of Kenya.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me this morning. One of the things that I would like to say is that part of the reason why these cases are ending up in the Senate, especially for governors, is because our systems have failed to work. when you hear some of these things about the plunder of public resources, and it so happens that some of these things have gone on for so long, and then you hear that the only way that a governor can be held accountable is, I know Governor Sonko's cases are also in court, but these are very recent. When we have institutions like the EACC, for example, the EACC is supposed to also prevent corruption. But if you look at the way EACC has been working, is that the systems that we have in this country to make sure that public resources are not misused do not work. And let me say why I'm saying they do not work. Number one, it's because if you're an ordinary citizen, and I have said this before, and you try to go and withdraw 1.5 million shillings in cash today, you will not. You will be asked a lot of justification, you will fill a lot of paperwork, and those kind of things. However, there are people who will get away with withdrawing 1 billion shillings. So one of the things that I have not understood yet is how the system works for the ordinary person and does not work for the extraordinary person. That's the beginning of the problem. And then two, when we have governors being removed out of office, and then in the case of Nairobi specific, then the basic question will be, and I'm sure we'll have a discussion over this maybe, is that what if we end up with a nominee that Governor Sonko had put forward? What if she's cleared by the courts and therefore vetted by the county assembly and she becomes the governor of Nairobi? Then what will happen to the will of the people of Nairobi? You see, those are basic questions that we need to be asking ourselves. And the laws that Senate has created, which requires that the governors nominate the deputy governors, in the event that they are out of office and those nominees become the governors of the county, then do those people represent the will of the people who voted in the first governors? You see, those are basic questions.
That we need to ask ourselves. And looking at this maybe as an overview, because it is the Constitution, in use and, being followed. This is the 11th governor to be impeached. And if he is shown the door, he would be the second one to be shown the door. Question, your thoughts on how the Senate is constituted and how they execute what is before them in regards to ensuring that they're the gatekeepers, that even if the MCAs maybe had a bone to pick with the governor, they will not just do that under their whims and get the governor out or impeach, but this becomes now the Senate. Your thoughts on how Senate has handled this so far?
You see, I'm on record having said that, for example, there are very many governors who have never ended up in the Senate because they have managed court and in court to manage their MCAs. And that's a problem. And that's why I said that, for example, when MCAs come up with a process of impeaching a governor, and then the grounds must be so solid such that it's impossible for that process to complete if it's on which hand. The unfortunate bit is that most of these things are because of abuse of office and misuse of public resources. So when we are dealing with those things, it means we go back to the same problem of having a problem of corruption as a country. And the Senate being the gatekeeper when it comes to removal of governors from office, you will find that, for example, senators, some of them will have interest in those seats. Then you will also find party politics coming into play. So when you have those things interfering with the process of how governors are removed from office, then the question will be, will you want to rethink the way Senate operates, for example?
Right.
Will you want to rethink the way Senate does the impeachment process? So that when a governor is being removed from office by the Senate today, and yet, like I said, we have many governors out there who, technically speaking, should have gone home long time ago. Then what are we trying to say in terms of the process of impeaching governors?
Right, and there's also the political side to it, because if we look at the case of, say, the former governor for Kiambu County, Ferdinand Waitito, it looked like literally the writing was on the wall even as he was going in for the hearing from Senate. But we've had others, say, for instance, the governor for Kirinyaga, who, again, many had to wait and see how that goes. Do you think the political side of it sometimes outweighs the legal to a point where if senators, politically speaking, are in support of a governor, then he's likely to get away with it?
Yeah, I just didn't want to put it the way you have put it. And even for Governor Sonko, the writing is on the wall.
What do you read on the wall?
In the sense that Governor Sonko is wanted out of office like yesterday. Even this is not, Governor Sonko will have.
All right, we do apologize. There's a freeze there on the link, and as we establish that connection, what we're discussing here is, of course, what is happening in the Senate. Nairobi County governor who has already been impeached by the members of the County Assembly, but is before Senate. We are expecting a vote to be taken today by Senate, and of course, that will be determining as to whether the governor is going to stay in office or not. But while we wait for that connection, it would be good to hear what you have to say. The hashtag is KTN Morning Express. If you'd like to tweet, it's at KTN News KE, or you can tweet me directly, and that's at Michael G. Gitonga. And more looking at the governance structure that we have as a country, and whether you feel that it is working for us in regards to where a governor has gone rogue or where a governor has abused office, like we have some of the accusations before the Nairobi governor, one of them being constitutional abuse of the Constitution, office, gross misconduct, corruption. When these accusations are flying in their face, do you feel that we have a fair system of justice that ensures the will of the people is protected, but at the same time, governor or leaders do not go rogue in terms of misuse and abuse of office? So I think we do have that connection back. So sorry, we lost you there for a bit. Alex, you were, giving your thoughts on whether we have a fair and just system, particularly when you look at it from a political angle. If one is politically favored, then even if they have these accusations flying before them, then they're likely to stay in office.
Yes, and we have seen a lot of that happening before. And like I initially said, we have governors out there who really should have gone home like yesterday, but they're still holding office because of two reasons. One reason being that they have managed their MCAs, or two, that they are favorites of their parties or they toe the party lines. And if you look at even Ogada, for example, is also a very good example where he was supposed to be impeached, but that impeachment process never happened. It never even began. Because of the fights and the power from between Ogada and his party, to a point where the party felt like if they went into the same confrontation, then they will lose the ground, or they will lose the electorate, or Ogada, it was too powerful for them. So some of these things then make you realize that there are so many cases that will never show up in the Senate. And again, there are cases that show up in the Senate which, fairly speaking, should have ended up with someone going home, but they didn't go home because they were either towing the party line or they were favorites of the party leaders or things like that. And Kirinyaga is also one of them. In fact, most people will have been surprised if the impeachment will have happened at the Senate. So that puts into question the very fundamental imagination that not everybody is being treated equally. But at the same time...
And the argument for Nairobi has been, Mike Mbuvi Sonko may stay in office. The argument has been because of the will of the people. So now, when we look at it from a political angle, we have few individuals who make the decision on behalf of many. And if you have their ear, then you're favored and you stay. If you don't, then you leave. So what happens to the will of the people? Do you feel that there is justice in this system?
Yeah, and that's why I was saying that what happens to the will of the people when people elect their leader, and then decisions around their leader are made elsewhere, then that becomes a problem. However, I think for Nairobi, the uniqueness of Nairobi has many other aspects. Number one is that Nairobi is a capital. And so the governor of Nairobi literally has to work directly with the national government in many aspects, leave alone other counties. Because this is the capital city and this is where State House is, this is where the diplomats are. So you cannot behave in a manner likely to be in contradiction with the way the country is supposed to be run. So Nairobi, and that's why some of us, our arguments have been that Nairobi should not even have been a county in the first place. So that remains my argument. But having said that, I think if you look at the way the governor of Nairobi, for example, has been conducting himself, then part of the problem is that he created a space or an environment which was impossible to even work with. To start with, he made it impossible to even appoint a deputy outside of the law. And I say that because even when you see the suggestions that he made, first of all, by forwarding Miguna, he was making child play out of very serious things. And then he fronted and finally someone went to court and stopped it. I want even to imagine that the voter who went to court probably was sent by him. And he was frustrating any process and any effort that would have allowed a deputy governor to be in office, because obviously he was fearing that he would be bundled out of office.
Right.
And of course, in Nairobi, the party, which is Jubilee, was also fearing bundling him out of office and getting back into the election. And so the challenges of Nairobi are so grave such that the behavior of the person in office at the very least needs to be a bit more diplomatic.
Right.
And then the outbursts of having signed away some of the responsibilities and then turning around to tell Kenyans that you're high and therefore you didn't know what you were signing. So those things were just creating ground for him to be on the receiving end in terms of his capacity to even lead Nairobi. However, but having said that, on the other side, we have Nairobians who voted Governor Sonko, and therefore, like I said, we are likely to end up with his nominee in the office as governor. And therefore, you start asking, so was that what Nairobians wanted to see as their governor in office?
All right. And as we wind up, Alex, what are your expectations of this particular, sitting in regards to Nairobi moving forward? We already have NMS who've taken over some of the functions. Whether Governor Mike Sonko stays or is impeached, there is likely to be some turbulence as to how Nairobi County is going to be run. What would you see as the best way for Nairobi County moving forward?
I think NMS is going to continue to play a critical role in the management of Nairobi. I think the only undoing for Governor Sonko has been refusing to sign for money meant for NMS and therefore for its functions, for the functions that he had signed off, even though he has been claiming that they are taking more than what he had signed off as in the deed of transfer. But having said that, what I see are two scenarios. The most likely scenario is that probably the person who has the case in court will withdraw the case, or it will be concluded in favor of having the lady vetted for purposes of becoming governor. The second scenario I see is that will flop, and therefore Nairobians will go to the polls in the next 90 days. So those are the two scenarios available. And whichever way it goes, 99% of the possibilities that Governor Sonko is going to be sent packing. And when that happens, then the person who comes in next to take after him will then be required, quote unquote, to work closely with the national government, because that is the only reason why it has been very hard for Governor Sonko to even operate in Nairobi. Right. But beyond that, I want to underscore the fact that the way we fight corruption in Kenya, the institutions that have been set up to deal with corruption must deal with these things as they happen or before they happen. It cannot be that we are dealing with things after they have way happened, and therefore, ultimately, just like, for example, the whole issue of the 800,000 that was being sent to the MCAs, it was very easy for that kind of information to leak around, EACC, for example, should have come in by now, or DCI. We do not understand why these things take forever, and yet they're the ones that create ground for impeachment processes.
All right, Alex Manyasi, we are out of time. Thank you very much for joining us this morning just to look through the impeachment process and governance in general, but of course taking focus and the springboard being Nairobi County, with Nairobi Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko having his second day before Senate today, and we'll wait to hear whether they're going to have a vote today and whether Mike Mbuvi Sonko will keep his job as governor, or is this the end of the road for him? Right here on KTN News, we certainly are going to keep you posted on that. For now, we're going to take a short break, but do stay with us. We have more on the other side of the break.